Let's talk about Illinois. They may be the first state to end up filing for bankruptcy. As I said before, they've got $15 billion in unpaid bills. That's about 40% of the state's operating budget. 40% of their yearly budget would have to be utilized in order to pay off what they currently owe. Illinois has a massive pension crisis. Its unfunded pension liability from the state's 5 major plans grew 225% alone this year, reaching $251 billion. Listen to this. The state has more than 660 government pension funds. That's a real number, 660 government pension funds. But critics say that some of these pensions carry overly optimistic assumptions. You think?
Yeah.
Do you think?
They do.
See, here's what they did. In order to make their numbers work and in order to offer the outrageous benefits that these pension programs have, they have to make assumptions about how much the pension investments are going to make every year. Because when you pay into the pension and when the government funds the pension, it goes into an account and it goes into investments so that hopefully it can earn a return every year and they can make a little bit more on the return before they have to start paying it out in benefits. And so they made assumptions generally at around 8%. This was the generally accepted number by pension funds across the United States, that they could receive at least 8% a year. Now, anybody who understands the history of the stock market and the economy in general would have looked at that 8% number and thought, yeah, there's no way. You might get that for 10 years or 15 years, but eventually you're going to hit a hard recession, and there's no way you're going to make that money. Well, if they don't make the money, then they have to make up the difference in the budget, or they simply have unfunded liabilities in their pension program. That's money that they should have contributed, but isn't contributed. So now they're behind on their pension program. That's where they are. They made assumptions that never in a million years could have happened, and now they're behind. The state's General Assembly wasn't required to fully fund pensions, which meant tax money was spent on other priorities such as schools or infrastructure. Adding to the state's fiscal pain is a shrinking tax base. For the last 3 consecutive years, Illinois has lost residents. Now let's talk a little bit about these pension programs, and I just want to use colleges for an example. Administrators, this is the best way to say it, administration on college universities in Illinois grew by 31% between 2004 and 2010. These are the dates they had available. 31%. At the same time, faculty increased by 2%, and the number of students also grew by 2%. So you're seeing 2% student growth, 2% faculty growth, means teachers, and then a 30% administrator growth. Everybody's got a secretary. Everybody's got somebody pushing paperwork around. Everybody's got somebody justifying their jobs and making a bundle. And all of them have pension programs. Now, how do you pay for it? How do you increase your administration costs by 30% while not increasing your tuition? You can't, because you don't have any more students coming into the pipeline. So over the last 10 years, from 2006 to 2016, here are just some averages of tuition price increases. At Chicago State University, increase of 77% on what it costs to go to school. Eastern Illinois, 78%. Governor's State University, 103%. Northeastern Illinois, 112%. Carbondale, 92%. Springfield, University of Illinois in Springfield, 108%. I'll explain it to you as clearly as I can. Progressive policies in action. So you have a group of people who feel that you are entitled, that somebody owes, and therefore it is government's responsibility to make it right. What do? They end up coming out and saying, well, if you work for the government or if you work for one of these universities, you can have tenure, and we're going to set up a pension program for you so to make sure that when you retire, you're guaranteed a certain standard of living till the day that you die. And we're going to make some assumptions on how much our investments are going to earn in order to justify the ridiculous pensions that we're going to give you to make it all look good on paper. And as things got bad and as they couldn't pay their debts, their answer was just to raise taxes. Why? Because there'll always be rich people to tax and spend. But now they live in a state where every year the rich are leaving. If you can leave, you're leaving. Why? Because you don't want to pay the outrageous taxes. Because you see the writing on the wall. The only people who remain are the ones who have their hands in somebody else's pocket. And now they're $15 billion in debt. They have $250 billion in unfunded liabilities that they have promised to pay, but that they have no means or ability to pay. And it is just a matter of time before they go bankrupt. This is statism, it's progressivism, socialism, however you want to frame it. This is it in action. We looked at Venezuela. You want to see where this goes? Let's look at Venezuela. Right now, we have to look far off into the future of where socialism ends up and where these policies end up, but we have a picture of the future right today. We're living in it. Look at Venezuela. Venezuela started out just like Illinois did. Couldn't make its payments, couldn't pay its people, raising the taxes, printing more money, promising you the world with no ability to deliver. That's exactly what happened in Venezuela. It just happened on a much bigger scale. You want a view of the future? Of what socialism, statism, progressivism looks like? That's what it looks like. We talked yesterday about the facade of progressives. That they're meek, that they're loving, that they're accepting, that they're tolerant. They're none of those things. They're Nicolas Maduro. Their ideas and their policies lead to what we see in Illinois. They lead to what we see in Venezuela. Just how long do you want to continue down that path? You see, these things are undeniable. You can try and fight them. There's just overwhelming evidence. It's never worked. Communism, socialism, fascism have never worked. I've always said we cannot be defeated in the arena of ideas. We can't be. Because what we believe is true, supported by evidence. The difficult part is convincing people to think beyond their emotions and to take a logical grasp of the issues.